Good morning, Market Chameleons. Everyone joining us for the first time. Thanks for coming by and checking out the Market Chameleon pre-market show. Before we get started, let's take a look at the shared disclaimer. Be aware that neither Market Chameleon, Dimitri, or myself are registered investment advisors or a broker dealer. If you're searching for investment advice, please reach out to a licensed professional. This show, as all our shows, is for informational purposes only concerning Market Chameleon tools and products. With that, good morning, Dimitri. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Will, and good morning, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. And today, what we're going to do is cover an option order sentiment report and what the concept is around that option order sentiment report. What type of insights are we looking for? And first, let me show you how we get there. So right now we're on the main page, and if we go under screeners, under options, main menu, over here, order flow sentiment, I'm going to click on this, and this gives us an overview of the different securities, symbols that trade options, and what we do is create this order sentiment report. And the idea there is that when we look at the economy in general, and whether you're looking at economic indicators that are maintained by, like, let's say, government agency, the Fed, or any other government agency, or even internally by banks, or Goldman or Merrill, or whatever. We look at securities and prices, especially prices and volume, because those are signals by the market. Those are indicators by the market how people may be feeling, right? In general, how people are feeling, how the markets are feeling. Is there something that they're signaling or indicating out there? And we use that data. That's why we monitor that data. That's why we look at it as market signals. What are the markets telling us, right? Because the markets have a way of telling you things just by their actions, right? By people's actions. They are conveying a message, right? Like when you go out there and a lot of people determined to buy something, well, they're conveying a message that there's a high demand for something and maybe not enough supply, or if people stop buying stuff and there's low demand and low volume and prices are going down, maybe you overproduce something. And there's so these are signals in the markets that we're trying to analyze, ascertain, and see what are people trying to say through their actions. Okay, so when we look at the options markets, we could take the trades, the trading volume, and start analyzing it to try to gauge how are people feeling, what they might be signaling, what are the markets trying to tell us. And that's the idea behind the option order flow sentiment. We look at the order flow, and then we try to analyze it and create metrics and statistics to get insights. What can they potentially be signaling at this moment? How are they feeling? What they might be feeling at this moment. Now, so in this option order flow sentiment, there are a couple things here that we're doing, and besides getting raw data, so you get this raw data, and how do we convert the raw data into more meaningful insights? And we have to start analyzing it. Sometimes we have to make our best guess and inferences of things going on. So just to keep in mind, once we go into the analytics and into the statistics, we're trying to translate the actions into what people might be signaling. And one of those is to look at the option trades and convert it to their Greeks. Okay, so what I mean by that is, we see these deltas, right? These are SPY deltas, 989,000 deltas. But well, what does that mean? And when we look at an options trade, you could have one contract that trades. Well, one contract that's deep in the money, right, could have a delta of 1 or 100, meaning that it moves 1-for-1 with the stock. If the stock goes up $1, the option goes up $1. The stock goes down $1, the option value goes down $1. You could have an option that's way out of the money. It could be a penny, it could be 2 pennies. It's so far away. Let's say the stock is 100. You have options that trade on the 200 strike, which is so far away that even if the stock moves up $1, down $1, the option value, it would be an insignificant move. It'll stay unchanged. So the delta is telling us the sensitivity of those options relative to a dollar move in the stock. And by converting that trading volume to delta volume, we could get a sense of how people are using options based on their directional or immediate directional, conveying their sentiment up or down. So that's kind of like the idea behind deltas. We convert that delta, that option volume, to deltas. But there's an option has a buyer and a seller, right? So there's always a buyer and a seller. So if somebody's getting long 100 deltas, somebody's getting shorted 100 deltas. And what we're trying to do is look at the options and say, okay, there are people in the option space. We call them market takers, market makers, liquidity providers, liquidity takers, right? So it's like, think about it as customers and dealers. There are people out there that just provide liquidity, right? And then there are people who take liquidity because they're conveying their feelings that this option, is a buy for me because of this and this and this. So we're trying to ascertain where are the end users, how are the end users coming into the market, taking liquidity? Are they more, bullish buying deltas or bearish selling deltas? And there's no solid indicator, there's no definitive answer coming from the exchanges because they just report a trade. Given that, we do have a lot of other information out there, by analyzing the surrounding markets, the implied volatility movements, the bid and ask spread, the leans, all this, if we could put that into a algorithm that gives us a most likely scenario, right? So that's what we're doing. So the most likely scenario is that the end user was coming in, buying calls, selling calls. So this is still inferences and analytics. That's just part of economics, and finance. That's what we do. We create models to try to get us, close answers. Just like if you take when you look at a survey, right? You survey 100 people and then you say this is an estimate of the bidder population. So we run it through this, model. This is our model, that we input lots of data into, including surrounding markets, implied volatility levels, how they're moving, and we create these inferences of what the end users are doing. So we take these deltas, just so you understand what the deltas are coming from, and we aggregate positive deltas, which could come from buying calls, selling puts. That would negative deltas, selling calls, buying puts. We aggregate them to get the on balance delta. Okay, that's what this is, the on balance delta. So here, let's start out with SPY, IWM, QQQ. These are broad-based ETFs. How are the options trading in there? And then we could look at individual stocks. So this report here goes deeper, looks at individual stocks. These are the top 10 S&P 500, top 10 Russell 2000, top 10 NASDAQ 100, just top 10 bullish and bearish deltas, sector ETFs, and so forth. And then these are special ones, like, people buying deltas when the stock dips, people selling deltas when the stock rips. So you got these reports. But let's cover this top portion. And in SPY, what this is shown is we have a positive of 989,000 deltas, almost a million deltas. So that would be, if we had to kind of put it in a perspective of stock, what this would be saying is, in aggregate, there's a more bullish deltas than bearish deltas. So for dollar move, in the stock, and keep in mind, it's not from one trade or trade to, in a specific option. This is aggregated all day, running aggregate from all day. So it would be equivalent, like, to 1 million shares of stock positive, for a dollar move. So if it moves down, you're down a million, up a million. And here we have a couple other things, though, in place. And we have to recognize that SPY, the ETF, these broad-based ETFs, are also used for other purposes, such as hedging, re-hedging, and so forth. So it might not really be reflective of the overall market sentiment in general, unless maybe we start seeing very big numbers. But numbers, even when you have numbers, you're not going to be always zero, so they fluctuate, right? So these numbers, even a positive million could be just within a normal range, or negative million could be within a normal range. We're looking maybe for something like very unusual, very like big, where you're like, okay, this, because what is a signal? The markets move around all the time. So an unusual indicator may be very large. But let's go a little bit further and say, well, if we're looking at the S&P 500, SPY, why don't we look at not only the SPY ETF, what about the components? How are people feeling in the components, right? Because if they're very negative in the components, that could be a different signal. Like, what is it? What if we took the components on SPY and aggregated that? What would be on balance? So, for example, the options trades in Tesla could be telling us something completely different than the options trades in SPY. These are two different securities trading options, but they're still related. But they're two different securities. An options trade in Tesla, doesn't, or an IBM or an Apple, are separate trades than the ones in SPY. So what if we took those and said, okay, how do we combine them? The S&P 500 components and the SPY ETF. Well, you can't really combine the deltas in a straight, mathematical addition, because the stock prices are different. So a million deltas in, like, say, $1 stock or $10 stock is different than a million deltas in a $500 stock, because it's a lot notional value. There's much more risk, right? So if you risk, the stocks are more highly priced. So even though for a dollar move it is, but a percentage move, $1 percentage move in a $500 stock is much smaller than a percentage move in a $10 stock, right? So what we do here is convert that delta then into a notional value. How much, if I'm long a million deltas in a $10 stock, what does that represent versus a million deltas in in a $500 stock, and then we get this notional value, delta times the stock. So this in SPY is now translated to $598 million worth, okay, in notional value. But if we combine all the S&P 500 components, what we find is a different viewpoint of a negative 1.1 billion, actually like bearish on balance. So if we combine those two, we got a net negative delta of 460 million in the S&P 500, ETF and components combined. So you could see how we got such a different picture. It went from a positive to really, if we convert and add all of them up, to a negative sentiment. So here we got SPY, the IWM Russell 2000, and the QQQ negative $641 million. So that's what the order sentiment is trying to do, is keep looking through the data and seeing, well, what are the markets telling us now. Keep in mind that doesn't necessarily mean like, whoa, the markets are so negative. These things tend to trade in a range around some around some average. So it doesn't necessarily mean like, oh my God, everything's going. Everybody feels like everything's going to collapse. It's not like that. These things will trade in some kind of band or range. Just like think of like volume in general, right? So if we look at Apple volume or volume in Microsoft, well, on a day-to-day basis, we don't get exactly the same number, right? But usually it's around some kind of an average, right? Above or below some kind of an average. So you always want to keep that in mind. And if we wanted to go down to the single stock level, single equity level, then we could just come down here. Now we have the top 500, and just to get a sense of, maybe we could see something there, the flow, maybe some kind of something sticking out, maybe in a particular sector or industry in S&P 500, just to get a sense, like what things look like. And here we just see like just the top ones. You got XOMO, with that's shown up as bullish, 2.6 million. Tesla, Delta's negative 2.5 million, and then followed by Intel, and then they kind of start dropping off, look quickly, so you could see how they appear relative to each other. And also, one of the things is that the deltas themselves, options traders, could also be using options, as a contrarian or contrary to where the stock is moving. So the stock could be moving down, and which indicates that shareholders are currently bearish, right? The stock is moving down. There's more supply, more demand to sell than there is demand to buy. So the markets are indicating that stock is moving lower, let's say from previous close. But options traders at these levels could signal something else, that they think that the stock will recover, and then they come into buy calls, sell puts, or close out of positions at these levels. So that would be what we call, buying the dip, right? So I'm going to skip these because these are very similar. But let's say buying the dip, which this shows, hey, the stock itself is down on the day. So here, this one's down 46, PLTR, so these are stocks that are down on the day, but the order flow looks like it's going on balance in the other direction, which is maybe something worth taking a look at, where, at least the options order flow isn't flowing in the same direction as the stock. So that would be buying deltas on the dip. The stock is dipping. But you could also have selling deltas when the stock goes up. Stock goes up, people start selling calls, maybe buying puts. So they're thinking that maybe, at this point, I'm going to unload some positions, or I'm going to hedge some positions, or I don't think it's going to go much higher. So this would be what we call selling the rip.
AD?
Yeah.
Really quick, we had a late arrival. Could you walk through how you got to this page?
Yeah. So if you go options, main menu, overflow or order flow sentiment overview. And then you land on this page. So
awesome.
Selling the rip. Yep. Thanks. So selling the rip. This is a concept where, well, the stock is up, but the option order flow doesn't seem like it's going in that same direction. So, we got, it appears like, call sellers or put buyers, but on balance, it's, that the option order flow is contrary to where the stock movement is going. But you could also have where the option order flow is going in the same direction as this stock people, right? Like everybody's bullish. Let's say this stock equity traders and the options traders are all going in there in a bullish manner. So that would be like buying the rip. Like so that's what happened. Looks like in Intel, it was up, and options traders continue to the order flow and balance was conveying that they think it's going to continue, right? By the order flow sentiment. ZIM up 7%, and the order flow sentiment was positive, Apple, and so forth. So these, and it doesn't necessarily mean we know what the stock is going to do. We just can keep in mind when we look at markets and prices and transactions, we're trying to aggregate things and analyze them to get a sense of like what are the markets conveying at the moment, right? Then you could have a case where the stock's going down and the order flow is moving, the option order flow is moving in that same direction, right? That they think that direction can continue, and they're either buying protection or conveying that they think that there's more room to go down. So that would be continue selling the dip. So stock, let's say, falls, but the order flow continues to be bearish, right? So that on balance, it continues to be bearish, right? On balance, more put buying and sell call. So this would be selling the dip. That's what we had to come up with kind of names for these reports. So that's what we call selling the dip, market dip, stock dip, and there's more delta selling. Finally, in this report, you do have, in my watch list. So if you have stocks in your watch list, this is broad. It'll show you your top 10 bullish deltas, top 10 bearish deltas. Okay. So this is kind of an overview of this order sentiment report. You could go back a couple of days if you wanted to, but this is an overview of that order sentiment report. We could quickly kind of come in and just try to get a sense of, how are the markets, what are they signaling? How are they looking today? And from day to day, you'll be able to notice if like something's unusual going on there. But again, any report, from day to day, you'll see, okay, this looks like it's in range of like typical order flow. So, I think I'm going to stop right there.
Hey, that was great, D. Awesome report. Great information to the Chameleon community. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Remember to give us a thumbs up, like us, smile us, follow us on YouTube, Facebook, all the platforms. Great job, D, as always. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe out there. Have a great trading day and hope to see you guys tomorrow.
Trade in peace, Chameleons. Everyone have a